So I have Michael Manrique of Affinity Management Services. Now, Michael is the director of business development, and they are excited to be expanding into the Southwest Florida area, but obviously have a lot of experience. Michael, why don't you, first of all, welcome, and then why don't you tell everybody a little bit just off the top about yourself, kind of how you got into this field. It's a unique
Sure.
field for sure, and
Yeah.
then a little bit about Affinity, and then we'll get into some deeper questions.
Yeah. I actually ran into this field by complete happenstance, which I think is the case for the majority of people.
I
Back in 2007, I was dating someone and she eventually became my first wife. And her mom had a management company. And I was, after the financial crisis took place, I was looking for a job and I was substituting and trying to make ends meet and trying different things. And her mom brought me on board and I just took off from there, was in the space. So I was with a mom and pop shop for I think 2 years or 3 years. And then I jumped to First Service Residential, which at the time was known as the Continental Group. So I was there for another 5 years. And throughout that time, I went through kind of like a personal growth. I eventually separated and divorced my wife. And I went through this process of reanalyzing what I determined to be success. And in that process, I was able to, acknowledge where, as many people as possible. So I started my own company and I started in the self-development space, helping people lose weight, help people accomplish a myriad of things, and realize when you're helping everyone, you really help nobody. So and then I niched myself to real estate agents. I saw a statistic that said 87% of agents quit the industry after 5 years.
Oh, very much, yeah.
So I jumped into coaching real estate agents, helping them build better habits. I actually published a book on behavioral science, on prospecting and building the right habits to become a successful real estate agent. And unfortunately, there was changes to the market. There was changes to the way marketing initiatives were implemented. And it led me back again through happenstance through Affinity Management Services, something that I wasn't looking to come back to, but me and the owner of the company, Raphael, kind of found each other on LinkedIn and we had several conversations and the match was perfect in the sense that affinity management is not just about numbers and figures. They're really about the people and about improving the people, finding the right people, having the right people in the right seat, doing the right work and keeping them for the long term. And that's really one of the things that's really important about affinity management services. We're not looking to be the largest company in the world. In fact, what we really care about is growing by design. And what that means fundamentally is partnering up with associations and board of directors that want long-term committed relationships. And that's what we really care about at its fundamental level. So as long as we can agree on the process that leads to identifying challenges and overcoming them on a consistent basis, if that's the thing for you and you understand that's the reality of this business, and then we're a match, and that means we're going to be together for a long time and we're going to have success on both sides, regardless of the situations that appear before us.
Yeah, that's key, especially this industry. I've found turnover is one of those challenges that everybody faces. There's a few vendors that are related to HOAs that there seems to be a lot of turnover. Property manager is the first one. Landscaper seems to be real high on that list too.
Yeah.
But for property management, and obviously with my background in property management, I'm well aware of that. The long-term relationships are so key. And I think there's a lot of boards out there that always think, okay, well, if there's an issue going on within the community, I'm going to switch management companies and everything will just be fixed. But they don't realize it is a process. It's a relationship. And like any good relationship, it's a learning process between the two entities.
Mhm.
And that has to be first and foremost, I think, what everybody's striving for, a long-term relationship, because you need to know the ins and outs. It's hard to learn a community. It takes a
Mhm.
while. And once you do, if you get a switch in board members and they just want to, well, I just want to put my stamp on everything now, you're really missing out on that key factor of property management, which is knowing the community, knowing what's going on. So I love hearing that. So you guys are based where exactly? Obviously
Uh,
East Coast, but
yeah, East Coast and Miami, Florida is where we're based. And then most of our portfolio is through the Tri-County area and then Palm Beach.
Yeah, I love that you are expanding in a managed way
Mhm.
and entering this market. There is so much need, honestly, for just a different vision. I see a lot of mom and pops, people that, have their CAM license for a year and think, "Hey, I'm just going to go ahead and start my own business." They don't realize what's entailed, really.
Right.
Or what you see a lot of times are the large companies that are gobbling up all the small companies. And
Mhm.
you end up with, well, you get Coke, Pepsi, or, I don't even know who the third one would be out there.
Right.
But if you're lucky, there's another tier. So I love that you're doing that. So what would you say? I mean, overall, what would you say the main challenges are for this industry as a whole? Let's just start there.
Yeah. So you hit it on the head there when you were talking about how a fundamental level, I think association residents, board members are fundamentally misaligned with what the management company is doing and how the management company can benefit the association. So yes, sometimes the management company is maybe not doing the things that they should be doing, but at a fundamental level, they're just not aligned as to what the priorities are. So when you step out of your home and you see things not up to a certain standard, you start thinking, oh, this management company is not good. When they don't return your phone call or when they don't do, when they don't communicate in a certain way, you know, again, you're not, there's a misalignment. Maybe the manager thinks, oh, I'm doing everything right based on what I'm being taught or based on like what you said in their short experience to just get their CAM license. So fundamentally, the biggest challenge is alignment. And to overcome that, you have to have absolute structure when it comes to the types of communication and accountability systems in place, right? And that's one of our strengths fundamentally when we start with any client. But it's not just about when we start, it's about maintaining it. So one of the things that we like that really separates ourselves, I think, from the competition is that we realign every 90 days. So every 90 days, your community association manager and your regional director are going to sit down with you. We're going to look at what was accomplished or what wasn't accomplished the previous 90 days based on the goals and vision of the board. And then we're going to look to see, okay, well, what do we need to change, right? Fundamentally, maybe changing the trajectory, but making sure that we're aligned in path that we want to go down. And that's fundamental. So now when you're getting communication and you're talking and you're seeing maybe things aren't being accomplished at the speed, but you're getting the communication to understand those gaps. The residents are being communicated with to understand those gaps. So now when you see something, you're like, oh, okay, I see that this hasn't been done yet, even though it was supposed to be done. There's a reason behind it, right? So now they're more patient, they're more understanding, and we're all fundamentally aligned.
That's key. Yeah, I think people get lost in the weeds. They're so focused in on the day to day. Every once in a while, you do need that pullback and get
Mhm.
that 10,000-foot view so everybody can realign. I love that. I absolutely, oh, I love that.
Yeah. And
Oh,
what you hear often when I sit down with prospects, a common phrase I hear is that this shouldn't be that hard, right? They should just be doing like the same stuff over again. Like, why is this so difficult? And why it's so difficult is because the board's perception and then the management's perception, right? And of course, again, I'm not saying that everyone's doing what they're supposed to be doing. That's not what I'm saying. And that's why communication and accountability, there needs to be that structure, right? So, and then you can clearly see that they aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing, right? Instead of it being like an unknown and a question where you
oh,
know for sure we need to move away from maybe this manager or maybe this management company, if there's like this gray area of this awkwardness of because we're not 100% sure, it just feels like there's something missing. And that's the misalignment, right? Because it shouldn't be that hard. And I'm not saying everything needs to be perfect, but there needs to be a certain expectation reassessed on a regular basis. And if you don't have that structure, that cadence, and then it's very common for residents and board members to feel that disconnect. And that's why I feel it's really the biggest challenge between the relationship between management and
sure.
board
Now, when it
director.
comes to communication, do you have a system where people can log in or they can view status? Because I think a lot of times transparency where people feel, hey, I don't have to always make that phone call. I
Right.
can get some of this information myself. It kind of gets that angst out of the air. of, oh, there's this mysterious curtain and I got to try to find my way behind it to get my information. What do you guys use?
So absolutely. So again, it all starts with alignment. So once we've aligned with communication, right? So what does that mean? That means that yes, we have a preferred like communication structure, which I'll talk about in just a second, but there's nuances with it, right? Maybe some board members like to come in once a week and just sit down with the manager and have a chat, right? Maybe some of them prefer receiving text messages or emails, or just like a weekly call and just caught up. They don't want to review the entire manager's report. Hey, just tell me what's going on, right? So the nuances and communication is absolutely critical, because if I'm sending you information and you're not even reading it, what's the value in the information? Yeah, I'm doing everything right, but if it doesn't apply, right, it's not at a professional level. What we recommend, or what we execute, I should say, is we fundamentally provide a weekly manager report. Okay, so a weekly manager report will have information in there such as inspections, violations, maintenance updates, and financials. And again, for some boards, maybe that's too much information. And this is why we curtail it based off of what they truly need to know, right? We provide monthly newsletters, again, to highlight updates, events, board initiatives. So that, again, the residents are involved with what's going on. One of the things that you mentioned, like technology that we like to leverage, we use Verde Link. So Verde Link is essentially our platform for management, where the board has access to see what's getting done at what time, either what's been done in the past or what's going to be done in the future. So they have access to that, real-time access. They're able to see that. And then on the financial side, we use AvidXchange, so they could see their financial information and any accounting information that's relative to them. So again, absolute transparency on the push, a finger on their mouse or a few clicks on their keyboard. Another thing that's really important when it comes to communication and transparency in town hall meetings. So where this comes in handy is twofold. I had a situation where there was an association that was dealing with a conflict about changing tennis court into pickleball courts.
Gee, haven't heard that lately at all.
Yeah. And the board was explaining that this was a small contingent that wanted to make this change. And they were having this communication battle with this small contingent. And fundamentally, like, the solution was just bringing everything to light, right? So one, you execute a survey, send it to everyone, let everyone know, hey, this is an idea. Not saying we're going to do it, but if we were to do it, this is the cost involved. Who would be for it? Who would be against it? Now you have data, right? And then with this data, you could actually have a town hall meeting, have more people attend this, have an open dialogue, share the data. So now this small contingent understands with information, with facts, as to why we're not moving forward with it or why we are going to move forward with it, right? And that town hall meeting allows that to happen. Again, if you're going through maybe large projects, maybe you're purchasing a clubhouse from a developer, there's tons of questions that residents have about that. And it's hard sometimes to get that information. So the best format for that is just to have a town hall meeting, come in, ask questions, get the answers, and then you could go about your way, right? And you're having that human to human connection instead of it being digital, instead of you having to search and not knowing what's right. You're actually connecting with the person or the people that are responsible for increasing the level or the lifestyle at your community and confident with.
Yeah, I love the town hall format. I always have, whether I was in the property management side of this or now on the vendor side of this. I just think that having a face-to-face, having a Q&A, getting a real dialogue, and not just bullet points, but where there can actually be conversation, that tenfold. I think that's so important compared to just sending out a couple of snippets or one email. This is the update on this situation.
And it's just so amazing, that dynamic, right? The person to person dynamic versus even the phone dynamic or the text message dynamic or the email back and forth, the way we treat each other, the way we listen to something, the way we interpret it is so different, right? We get more clarity, we get more understanding, we're more open to the information when it's person to person. So fundamentally, that's one of the main tools that we leverage to kind of break gulf between the emails going back and forth and the hesitancy, and just having absolute clarity and being on the same page as to why we're moving forward with what we're moving forward with. So again, you just feel more comfortable. It's your home. It's where you live. You come home to rest and relax. You don't come home to bring more pressure and challenges. So why not have a management company that supports you in that effort?
Sure. So on that same line, some newsletters, great. I love those. Town halls, great. But for overall lifestyle, for resident experience, how do you at Affinity, how do you approach that?
Yeah. So fundamentally, we'll have seasonal events. If there's a committee that needs to be formed and an association that wants to do more events and take that responsibility, we do that. But so just to be clear, the expectation is the community association manager and the regional director would be managing that process, more on the community association manager. So, and that works again with communicating again via text message. Maybe they have different chats like WhatsApp or things of that nature, setting up the events on site, setting expectations, scheduling, if it's like food trucks or if there's different vendors, different performers that need to attend, that all falls on the management company to execute at a fundamental level. We don't require anything additional. Now, when it comes to resident engagement, one of the things that's really important to understand is sometimes, at least with us, the part of the proactive communication and transparency is also about the manager being out in the field. So the expectation isn't for the manager to be like this email warrior that just sits behind their desk and just answers emails. They are going to have a structured routine where they're going to be knocking on doors and meeting people, especially if there's certain initiatives and certain projects that need to be done, especially if there's times where maybe an email isn't best to communicate. So with that being said, the manager isn't always going to be able to answer every single phone call. And this is where our customer service teams come into play. So our customer service team is held accountable to a above 94% pickup rate, meaning that we have a number that gets transferred. If the manager is not able to pick up the phone, gets transferred to our customer service team, and they'll pick up the phone over 94% of the time and deal with the very common issues that are asked of the manager on a day-to-day basis. So you get that information. Another thing we like to leverage, again, if a mistake happens, if maybe even a communication needs to go out, our customer service team will reach out to every single member of that association and give them that update. Maybe let them know of a notice that went out, maybe even apologize if we, sent out a notice or something happened that was incorrect. We're going to go above and beyond to make sure that we're communicating with the residents to let them know of what's happening and what we're doing to resolve. So fundamentally, the engagement and resident experience is something that we value really above everything else. And to just add to that, one of the things that we do to really understand how the board is feeling and how the residents are feeling is every 90 days, we send out a survey specifically to the board, again, to understand what are we doing well, what can we improve on? So, and then we're constantly looking to grow. This is part of the alignment that I mentioned at the beginning. That is the beginning of this, but it's not just happening at the beginning when you start with us. It's happening again and again and again every 90 days. Now, for the residents, every 6 months, we send out a survey to the entire membership to understand what they are perceiving, what they're seeing, right? What can we learn from their eyes, from what they're experiencing, and see if we can level up, bring it to the board's attention, maybe make it a priority, and now have constant communication, letting them know, hey, we heard what you said, and based on that, we're going to do X, Y, Z over a certain period of time.
That's amazing. So the 94%, I would put that on a giant billboard everywhere because that's a heck of an achievement.
Absolutely.
So you must have a very focused staff, or very large whips. I'm not sure, one of the two.
It's an incredible
I'll go
team,
with the
really.
motivated and caring staff. We'll go
Absolutely.
with that.
And just to take it another step further, okay, we have over 4,700 reviews, or just over 1,000 on Google, and then we use an application called So Tell Us. It's just an easier application to provide feedback and
Right.
reviews. And on a scale from 1 to 5, we average a 4.6. And that's over 4,700 reviews directly from residents. So again, customer service is really, it's really everything, because perception leads to reality, right? And if you feel like you're not being heard, like things aren't moving forward, and then that leads to the misalignment that I told you at the beginning is the biggest challenge between management companies,
Right. being heard is key to everything. I mean, you could look at even, I mean, I talked about this before, but associations, this is really the most local level of government that we have. But if you're not being heard, you can look at that at that local level in an association or the county or the state or the federal government. That's where that's where things go awry. You
Mhm.
need to be heard. There has to be communication. If you're not being listened to as an owner, nothing else matters at that point. It just doesn't. I mean, it could be the most well-run community, but if you don't feel like you have a voice and you're taken seriously, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter at all. So we were talking
Absolutely.
about that 94% again, which I think is just amazing for phone calls. Personnel in general. This is a very fluid industry where there seems to be a lot of people that are, whether they're a property manager or an admin, whatever it is, that there's not a lot of stick to itness. You see a lot of people on their resume. If you go to LinkedIn and you look at a property manager, you'll see they spent 1 year at this company, 2 years at that company, 1 year at that company. Same thing all the way throughout the industry. What do you guys do to make sure that you can retain good people? That's a
Right.
huge challenge in this industry.
So first, it's understanding their reality, right? I did it for 8 years. The common metaphor that we would use in the industry is we're like firefighters in the sense that we are constantly dealing with challenges. Very little praise, very little acknowledgement for what we do. It's just challenge, obstacle, hurdle after another, after another. That's what we face. And just at a human level, that's difficult, right? At a fundamental level, you walk into the office and people are, not always berating you, but at least the information coming to you isn't positive. It's something that's difficult to deal with for an extended period of time. So that's why support is absolutely critical, right? The average CAM stays at a property for 2 years. That's a data. So how do we extend that, right? And that goes to building the right culture fundamentally, right? And that culture comes with support, right? And that's actually one of the three steps to what makes Affinity so great at solving association problems and accomplishing goals, which what we call execute. So align is what we talked about fundamentally, where we get on the same page. There's 4 pillars to that. So we get on the same page. Once we're on the same page and we're doing that every 90 days, checking in again, we're then we need a process in place that reaffirms the effort that the CAM is going through. So they build the confidence within themselves to say, I can do this again. Right. So that process essentially is one where they meet with their regional director every week. Every week they have a meeting within their entire team at the beginning of the week where they discuss challenges that they face. They even discuss ideas to overcome those challenges. And then they're held to scorecards, right? Objectives that they need to hit on a weekly basis. So they know clearly what they're trying to accomplish. So when they accomplish it, they finally begin to feel that sense of achievement, that sense of accomplishment where they're like, yes, I'm doing good. Someone's recognizing me, right?
Yep.
So the regional director is telling them, yes, you're on the right track. You're finishing your manager report. You're doing this and that, right? So you're finishing your budget on time. All these things are being done. So now they're getting that positive feedback. And again, what we need to implement a culture of firefighting, of just constant problem solving, is a culture of celebrating the wins and professional development. So this weekly process is what we do to really support that and have them feel like they're part of a team and they're growing, not just professionally, but within themselves to say, I can do this again. Now, continue on with this process. What we generally do is those regionals, of course, are dealing with the same challenges and feedback, that CAMs are dealing with. So those regionals have their team meeting with the director of operations on a weekly basis. And again, they're held to scorecards and metrics. They're receiving praise when they're doing the right thing, right? They're coming up with ideas. They're talking about challenges. So we're having this open, honest dialogue every single week, right? And then finally, at the leadership level, which I sit on, right? the director of operations communicates, they cascade up essentially those global challenges that then we discuss at a leadership level to see how we can implement solutions that don't just implement maybe the one property that brought it to our attention, but it's something that we can implement company-wide throughout our 70 plus communities to help raise the standards of operations and customer service. So that executional process is as consistent as the sun rising in the east and setting in the west. And again, it's not about being perfect and saying that we solve every problem. It's about creating a process that brings to light the challenges, the obstacles, the hurdles, so we can deal with them in a timely manner. So again, the perception is my manager is aligned with me. My community association management company understands what our priority is, and we're working towards that, and we're communicating with them on a consistent basis so they feel comfortable and calm and relaxed.
That's going to be your special sauce moving forward. That's it for sure.
Yes.
So portfolio versus on-site, what would you say the split is within Affinity as far as how many on-site properties, percentage versus portfolio?
Yeah, our focus is on-site primarily. So
Okay.
that I would say 95% is on-site. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, okay. And then what about as far as food and beverage? How do you handle that too for on-site?
So we're actually opening up a community in Homestead that's going to have over 2,500 units. That's going to have a food and beverage component, but we haven't opened one yet.
Okay. Okay. All right. Looking forward into the future, polish off that crystal ball a little bit. What do you foresee in this industry? How everything is moving? Obviously, technology is a big thing. AI is, the buzz going on right now. I will never look at the movie Terminator the same way again. I can tell you that. It stopped being a fun sci-fi movie and more of a nightmare at this point. But what do you see for the next 5-10 years in the industry, but then also where Affinity fits into that?
Yeah. So we're really big on the technological shifts. Again, it aligns with making our team members' lives easier, right? We leverage AI where necessary. So there's a shift toward data-driven, tech-enabled, and resident-focused management. Absolutely. One example is a community at on-site staff at this recreational center in their clubhouse that basically just sat around and did nothing, right? When you actually looked at what they were doing, right? I'm sure they had moments where they would communicate with people and do stuff. Now with technology, I mean, you could create, seamless access entry or keyless entry access to the gym that allows you to lower that cost and then implement a renovation project to the gym equipment or to the gym itself, right? Because a lot of these clubhouses, a lot of the equipment has been outdated and it hasn't been renovated in decades. So how do we make that happen, right? Well, with the advent of technology, we can have kind of the same level of service, if you will, and provide an upscale in the lifestyle that you experience at a certain location, right? So technology, what it allows us to do is get more creative on how we can shift priorities. We manage the largest community in South Florida, which is the Amex. And when we brought them on, one of the things that we realized was maintenance was the top priority. So we reconfigured the team to have more maintenance staff and deal with the maintenance projects up front. So again, the perception begins to change and they see, oh, wow, things are painted, things are revitalized, tennis courts, clubhouses, things of that nature. And then once those projects have been done, and then we reconfigure the team to support those maintained areas. So technology allows you to do that. So that's one of the things that we want to be cognizant of and have those as options to present to our clients so they can make the best decision moving forward for their community.
So your growth pattern, obviously you're growing at a nice, solid, steady pace, which is the way to do it. I've seen a lot of companies make a big splash and kind of flame out, get out over their skis. They can't keep up with the demand. And all of a sudden their reputation takes a hit. And once that happens, hard to come back from that. I love the growth pattern. So first of all, how long has Affinity been?
18 years.
18
Yes.
years?
Wow. We've been around for 18 years. We have over 30,000 units now. And again, our process is tried and true. It's what we focus on. It's having communities that want to be in a relationship for the long run and believe in our process, align, execute, and deliver. Deliver is the last one. It's the last step to this process. And essentially it's focused on the sustainability. It's delivering for the long run, month to month, year after year, right? At an operational level and at a customer service level. I went over some of the operational things and as well as the customer service kind of concepts and strategies we implement. But that's the foundation. And if you believe in that foundation, and then we're going to have tons of success together, and we're going to have this long-term partnership, which allows you to let go of the ropes, feel like you don't need to babysit anymore, this management company, and finally feel relaxed in your home.
What would you say the average retention is for Affinity with your communities?
Actually, I was looking at that recently. I believe it was over 80% over 5 years that we've had certain clients.
Wow.
So yeah,
That's great. That's amazing. That's great. Well, I'd love to talk to you more, but obviously on a time frame, I just want to say thank you so much, Michael. This has been fascinating. We're going to talk a little bit further. That will be on the online podcast. So, but thank you so much for being on the program today. Appreciate your time.
it was an absolute pleasure. Thank you, Dick.
All right.
I
But I
figured.
do want to drill down into a few things.
Okay.
It's so funny how you said about firefighting. I don't know if I told you. So I started my adult life as a firefighter paramedic.
I was a paramedic.
Yeah.
I never got hired as a firefighter. So
Yeah, so
yeah.
I did that for 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And so, yeah, I must have a screw loose or something. That's probably why I fell into property management. I was like, oh,
Okay.
chaos. Yeah, I'll do that. I miss that rush of having people panicking all around me and coming to me for help. That's so funny. So how long have you been with Affinity?
Been since March of this year.
Okay. All right.
Yeah,
It sounds like honestly, it does sound like an amazing company.
it is. Yeah, no, it's quite impressive.
And for mostly, so who would you say your biggest competitors are? Like a KW, a
Big dogs,
Castle, I'm sure.
Castle, KW, FSR. Those are we compete with the big fish. Yeah.
Okay. That's great. So, and you were a working cam for, did you say
Yep.
8 years?
8 years, yeah. From
Was that
2007,
mostly
2000,
portfolio or
2000, what is it? 2007, 2008, 2016. Yeah.
was that portfolio or
Portfolio. Yep.
portfolio?
Yeah, I
and
had properties throughout the county.
we were
the
just talking
beach.
offline about the number of, I came across somebody recently that,
Yeah.
that
The most I managed was 15 and I couldn't do it for more than 2 months. So
Yeah.
I can't imagine 20 or even 50 is a joke. Like they're not doing anything. Like, I don't know what to say about that.
No. That's, you're not even driving by. You're looking
Yeah.
at the property on Google Maps.
Yeah.
And yeah, I covered that one today. Yeah. And I think for smaller communities that don't require an on-site, I think it'll be more and more heavily relying on AI or
for sure.
softwares and maybe just having somebody do a touch monthly just to make sure, okay, our book's done, do the
Yeah.
meeting minutes look okay or whatever.
So,
But
I mean, this is an interesting conversation, right? We've had it at the leadership level for a while now. And like operationally, managing a property is really easy. The problem is the people, right? No, I'm serious. If you actually look at what the CAM is doing throughout, their 40 hours or more that they're working, most of it is on the customer service side of things, not the operational side. The customer service side of things takes their priority away from executing operational.
exactly.
So yes, you're speaking from an operational standpoint. Yeah, we could go all digital and yeah, who needs a manager?
Right,
Yeah.
right.
But and then who's answering the emails? Who's dealing with, oh, the grass isn't cut and this vendor's not doing this and this and this and that. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's where then they'll miss the human. And that's why I don't think this business will change too much when it comes to
Yeah. Like you said, in the end, it's a people business. You can check boxes, but you can never eliminate the need for that human contact.
Yeah.
I mean, I know personally, there's so many times and obviously, I work for a internet provider service, and unfortunately, I am stuck with one that I don't work for because I don't live in an association. And this particular service that I have the displeasure of using for myself, to talk to a live human being is almost impossible. I'll go through that, maze of click 1, click 7, click 43, whatever. And maybe after being hung up on a couple times because I clicked too many buttons, I might end up talking to somebody and they're usually overseas and it's just a mess. Having that communication, as we talked about before, you need to feel like you're being heard. Otherwise,
Absolutely.
the experience is horrible. There's no, it's
Absolutely.
that support staff that is so key to everybody, I feel.
Yeah. And you don't realize it until you have it and then you lose it. Right. It's one thing to not know what it is, which I told you again, like the common feedback, it's like, this shouldn't be that hard. Right.
Yeah,
And
isn't this all you do? How do you not know how to do that? Well,
yeah. And then once you like share this new type of support, level of support, and then all of a sudden like, oh, okay, so that's the new standard. And then that's what they want to have all the time.
yeah.
So,
So I love that you were into like helping people before.
oh,
And
absolutely.
I've got this last 15 pounds I can't shed. Maybe we'll talk offline. Weight
Well,
loss. I work out. I work out almost every day, and if you could just like cut out my midsection, I feel like, hey, I'm looking pretty good.
yeah.
That last 15, I don't understand what the problem is. It could be that I'm 104 years old now. Maybe my metabolism slowed down, but
Yep. Yeah. There's 5 factors that go into that. The short answer is GLP-1. That's the short answer. Just
yeah,
take that and you'll beat those 15 pounds.
I,
It's crazy. Like the amount of like even athletes, right? So the people that you put in the highest regard to be in shape, they end their career and then they're like, okay, let me just get back into it. Um, and they just can't
yeah,
because of either environmental factors, age factors. There's 5 factors, like 4 out of the 5 factors are outside of our control. And GLP-1 is basically what gets in there. And then
I
through that, you learn the habit of not overeating. I mean, we live in a country where they serve us, our portions are just ridiculous, right? Our food is, very dense in calories, So yeah, it's all that stuff.
Yeah,
And
I was just talking to a board president this past week actually, and he had mentioned, "Oh yeah, I just lost 35 pounds." And we were
awesome.
talking, and he said, "Yeah, I'm taking whatever it was,
Right.
tirzepatide or whatever one of those are." He
Yeah.
goes, "Yeah, my wife lost 40 pounds." I told him, I said,
That's honest.
I am not a fan of like government overreach or anything like that, but I swear the country would save so much money if they would just say that needs to just be covered for everybody.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh.
We would diabetes would be diminished,
Absolutely.
all these health problems would be
Heart
so
disease is like one of the number one killers of death,
yeah.
old
I mean,
age.
that should only they put fluoride into the water.
Right.
Maybe put that into the water. So
Yeah.
so we're a bunch of skinny minis again. That would be nice. I'd like to be 18 and skinny again.
Yeah.
I'd
For
be a
sure.
fan of that.
For sure.
So, is there anything that you want to cover that we didn't get to? Is there anything that you wanna focus in on?
No, we hit everything. Like you said, I think we're
Yeah.
good to go. Yeah, I touched on everything that I wanted to touch on.
That's awesome. So 70 properties. So how many employees do you guys have? 180?
Yeah,
Do you have any support staff that's like back at a call center?
of course, absolutely. I
So
mean,
it's not just on site.
that's what everyone does nowadays. So for sure. Yeah, and then there's a manager to them. There's a lead to them. They're held to scorecards. I mentioned the 94%, but it's
Yeah.
also we listen to their calls. There's certain pickup rates. They should be on the phone for so long. The responses are scripted. I mean, we run a tight ship fundamentally. So
So the owner, what was he a working CAM in the beginning and then decided to branch off and do this on his own or?
yeah, so there's 2 co-founders, Rafael Aquino and Pedro Garcia. Pedro's a Iraq veteran that was close friends with Rafael, and Rafael was an engineer. He graduated with an engineering degree, but and then he didn't go that direction. He kind of ended up trying to wholesale properties, and then the collapse of the financial industry back in 2007, he had to manage these properties that he was trying to purchase, and yeah, and then he kind of fell into it. So
Yeah. Yeah, it seemed honestly, it does seem like everybody falls into this. That's in it.
yeah,
I've never met a person that said, "Oh, that was my focus," or when I grow up, I want to be a property manager."
I can't imagine. Yeah, I can't imagine that's the case. Yeah.
Yeah, I tell a lot of people too. I say, the local community colleges should have a focus in on this, or a job fairs at colleges, or this should be because this really, I do love the industry. I mean, I really
Mhm.
do. This should be something that is shown to young people as
Yeah.
they're just coming up because nobody really knows about it. I mean, yeah, especially in Florida, about associations, but you
Right.
don't think of it as a
Profession.
career when you're younger. You don't think of it
Correct.
as there's a path there. I think I might have told you, but I got two of my boys into this,
Mm.
and they're working their way up through the industry.
Yeah.
My one son actually is at First Service.
Oh,
He's a regional director now, and
nice.
I told both of them the first couple of years can be a lot of stress. Hopefully, you'll come out with some hair left on your head, but if you do, there are paths in this industry.
Yeah.
It's a solid industry.
Yeah. I guess I would say if I was really going to think about it, what the story I hear most often is it's a feeder from the hospitality side of things. So a lot of people get into hotels, get burned out by the hotel industry, and then they're like, oh, wow, it's kind of hospitality, but it's calmer, right?
Yeah.
And in ways it is, and in other ways it isn't. So that's the story I've heard the most. It's like, oh, I worked in the hotel, and then someone told me, I was getting burned out with the hours and everything, front desk manager, or some beginning manager level where they just begin to burn out, and then they're
Yeah.
like, oh, the switch.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
again,
So
easy
they're
to
like,
get a
"Oh,
camp.
I'm beginning to burn out. I wanna go burn out completely, so I'll get into the cam world." Sure. I put my toe in the water. I wanna jump in now. I want stress. But no, it is a great industry. Like, I wouldn't have gotten my kids into it if I wasn't a big fan of it, so. All right. Hey, thank you for your time. That's awesome. Awesome. All right. Thanks, Michael.
Derek, absolute pleasure.
All right. Talk to you later.
Take care. Bye-bye.